It's a warm welcome here in our studios from Serakunda. This is the Star TV News and I am Ajankati Sanyo. Shipwreck survivors returned home by authorities. IOM provides immediate emergency assistance. 3 years journey records victory as police grant group permit to hold protest. Taxi driver Ismaila Sise arrested for his alleged involvement in kidnapping, violent extortion and rape of women. On the international scene, Myanmar faces genocide case at ICJ. Rohingya demand justice ahead of Myanmar genocide hearings. At least 5 killed as New Zealand volcano erupts on tourist island. Those were the headlines and now the news in detail. Mauritanian authorities, in coordination with the Gambian government, returned the 78 survivors of Wednesday's fatal shipwreck. The International Organization for Migration has been providing humanitarian assistance to the survivors in Nwadibu. Maimuna Juf reports.
On Friday, a second fishing boat carrying between 150 and 180 migrants was intercepted by the Mauritanian Coast Guard. This group was also returned by authorities. Although the migrants did not return voluntarily on request of the government of the Gambia, IOM agreed to provide immediate emergency assistance upon arrival under the framework of the EU-IOM Joint Initiative for Migrant Protection and Reintegration. This includes immediate medical and psychological support, food and essential supplies, temporary accommodation and onward transportation to communities of origin for over 250 individuals who opted to receive assistance. IOM advocates for migrants rescued at sea to be disembarked through predictable mechanisms and for alternatives to administrative detention to be identified. IOM will continue to work with the Gambia Red Cross and the International Committee of the Red Cross in Mauritania to help families identify whether their loved ones were among the dead. For any support needed in tracing family members, please reach out to the CRCS on any of the following numbers: 772-5957, 314-1063, 985-1611. Reporting for Star TV News, I am Maimuna Juf.
Operation 3 Years Journey has been granted a permit by police to stage a protest on Monday, 16 December, a development seen by observers as a major victory for the right of freedom to assembly. The group has in the past months been engaged in months of negotiation regarding its plan to take to the streets this month to demand President Adama Barrow to leave office. Binta Koli sends us this report.
A source revealed today the Inspector General of Police has called the chairman of Operation 3 Years Jatna and told him his permit to stage a protest was ready for pick-up. The officials will meet with the police chief on Tuesday, the source added. It comes hours after President Barrow announced at a rally in Banjul on Saturday that he will register his party by the end of December. The president said the party will be launched in early 2020. Mr. Barrow had earlier on invited Operation 3 Years Journey to a meeting in Buvazone, but the group declined his invitation. On Friday, officials of Operation 3 Years Journey met with the Minister of Interior at his office in Kotu. The summit was attended by other top senior government officials. Reporting for Star TV News, I am Binta Koli.
The Office of the Inspector General of Police hereby informs the general public that officers of the Police Anti-Crime Unit have arrested Ismaila Ndong of New Street, Banjul, the taxi driver, for his alleged involvement in kidnapping, violent extortion, and rape of women within the Greater Banjul area in Kanifing. This is my report.
Following a public outcry about the activities of certain unscrupulous individuals going around kidnapping, extorting and raping women around the Independence Stadium, usually in a taxi driving around the stadium at night, the police have never relented in their investigations to locate and arrest these suspected bandits disguised as taxi drivers. Ismail Ndong, 24 years old, was arrested around 2:30 hours at Joshuang Mile 7 Junction along the Batin Harding Highway. He was driving taxi Benz 200C class with registration number BJL4176R, with features matching descriptions given by victims. The IGP's office has invited one of the victims and, in line with standard procedures, conducted an identification parade during which suspect was identified many times by the victim. Other victims are advised to come forward for possible identification of the suspect while the search for accomplices continue. The public is urged to volunteer any information that may be useful to the investigations. Meanwhile, the IGP's office assures the general public that it will invest all its energy and resources in ensuring that such undesirable elements are hunted, arrested, and brought to book. For Star TV News, Ajakadi Sanya.
We're going for a short break and we'll be back with the international news. And now, news beyond our borders. A 3-day hearing initiated after Gambia filed a lawsuit in November on Rohingya crisis. Aung San Suu Kyi arrived at the International Court of Justice, ICJ, in The Hague on Tuesday for a highly anticipated genocide case against Myanmar. The case, the first international legal attempt to bring Myanmar to justice over alleged mass killings of the Rohingya minority, comes after the Gambia on November 11th filed an application at the ICJ accusing Myanmar of violating the 1948 Genocide Convention. More than 700,000 Rohingya have fled to Bangladesh to escape the violence. Al Jazeera's news has the detail.
In open court, and that he will exercise his power impartially and conscientiously. End of quote. Pursuant to Article 31, paragraph 6 of the statute, that same provision applies to judges ad hoc. Before inviting Mrs. Pillai and Mr. Kress to make their solemn declaration, I shall first, in accordance with custom, say a few words about their career and qualifications. Mrs. Navanedem Pillai, of South African nationality, is a former judge with a distinguished career at the national and international levels. After obtaining her law degree at Natal University in South Africa in 1965, she practiced as an attorney for 28 years, inter alia providing legal defense for opponents of apartheid and handling seminal cases on the rights of political prisoners.
Well, just listening there to some of the opening remarks at the beginning of this hearing. We'll go back now to our correspondent Wayne Hay, who's just outside that courtroom in The Hague. Wayne, walk us through the legal arguments here that we might be hearing in the coming days. What kind of threshold will the prosecutors actually have to cross in order for Myanmar's actions to be considered genocide?
Yeah, so it's a good question because obviously proving a case of genocide is going to be very difficult. It has proven to be very difficult historically. The Gambians are saying similar things to what has been said by many other organisations over the past couple of years that have conducted extensive investigations, written very detailed reports about what has happened in Rakhine State, alleging crimes against humanity, alleging genocide, including the United Nations own investigation team, its fact-finding mission, found that they said that there was genocidal intent in some of the actions undertaken by the security forces in Rakhine State and also the Myanmar government. Well, the Gambians, on behalf of those OIC member nations, are saying all of those things, but they're going further as well, saying that not only was there intent, but there were genocidal actions undertaken by those security forces when they went through those Rohingya villages, conducting so-called clearance operations, destroying entire Rohingya villages, murdering, raping women and girls. So they are backing up those claims that have been made by many other organisations, many other people, and indeed going a step further.
Wayne Hay in The Hague for us following that trial. Thank you, Wayne.
Myanmar government will appear before the United Nations top court on Tuesday to face charges of genocide against its Muslim majority Rohingya. A military crackdown in 2017 forced many of the 700,000 Rohingya to flee to neighboring Bangladesh. Many of them now live in refugee camps in Cox's Bazar. Al Jazeera's Tanveer Chowdhury reports from Cox's Bazar, Bangladesh.
Zohir Ahmed lives all alone in the world's largest refugee camp, home to nearly 1 million Rohingya people. Holding his eldest son's photo, he tells me how he lost 15 family members, including his wife and 7 children, all brutally killed by the Myanmar security forces in 2017.
They took at least 20 people, forced them inside a hut, locked the door and lit the hut on fire, burning everyone inside. Somehow 8 women managed to escape the burning hut, but they were instantly chopped to death with machetes. So much brutality, so many of them, just burned alive.
The case brought forward by Gambia to the International Court of Justice will be the first international legal attempt to bring Myanmar to justice over allegation of crimes against the Rohingya.
Finally, after much international diplomatic pressure, Gambia has been successful in bringing them to face the International Court. We're grateful to Gambia that they were able to make them face justice. The Myanmar government has been persecuting us since 1942.
Habiba Khatun lost practically her entire family in a single day, all killed by Myanmar security forces. Recounting her story is like opening an old wound that just doesn't seem to heal.
Security forces and local Buddhist militants came with machetes and guns from every corner in our village. A few of us fled to a nearby forest. Others ran towards the river shore and stayed hidden. 22 of my family members were shot and killed, including both my parents and all my brothers and sisters.
Every single Rohingya refugee has a story of personal tragedy. There's so many individuals like Habiba whose family members were killed by the security forces in Myanmar. Most don't want to return to Myanmar without some sort of justice. Myanmar authorities may deny charges of murder, rape, arson and torture perpetrated by its security forces, but there are witnesses on the ground bearing testimony to the events that took place across the border.
I don't have any peace of mind anymore when I shut my eyes. I think of all of my family members, those who were killed. I want justice from the world.
It may take years before a ruling against Myanmar is handed down by the International Court, but for Zohir, nothing can bring his dear ones back. For him, it's an endless journey of pain and agony. Tanveer Chowdhury, Al Jazeera, Cox's Bazar, Bangladesh.
The United States Justice Department internal watchdog said it found numerous errors but no evidence of political bias by the FBI when it opened an investigation into contacts between President Donald Trump's presidential campaign and Russia in 2016. Al Jazeera's Bertie Cohen reports from Washington, D.C.
It's been a bit of a mantra from the U.S. president, trying to discredit the investigation into his campaign's potential collusion with Russia.
There was absolutely spying into my campaign. I'll go a step further. In my opinion, it was illegal spying, unprecedented spying.
Now this report from the Justice Department's Inspector General says it wasn't, that the investigation was launched with credible information and that the people behind it did not have political bias or improper motivation, a headline heralded by Democrats.
This report completely decimates the false narrative spread by President Trump and the far right.
I think there's spying did occur.
But the head of the Justice Department, the Attorney General William Barr, is dismissing that conclusion, sending out a statement writing, "The Inspector General's report now makes clear that the FBI launched an intrusive investigation of a U.S. presidential campaign on the thinnest of suspicions that, in my view, were insufficient to justify the steps taken." The report says the FBI did make mistakes. Agents withheld a lot of information about Carter Page, a Trump aide, when trying to get surveillance on him approved. That's something the president and his allies are focusing on instead.
This was an attempted overthrow, and a lot of people were in on it, and they got caught. They got caught red-handed, and I look forward to the Durham report, which is coming out in the not-too-distant future. He's got his own information, which is this information plus, plus, plus.
The president disregarding what the report actually says, pinning his hopes on the next one. A U.S. attorney has been tasked to prove what the president says is true, even though this one, after reading 1 million documents and interviewing 170 of the key people involved, insists it isn't. Patty Culhane, Al Jazeera, Washington.
And before we end the news, a recap of our main headlines. Shipwreck survivors returned home by authorities. 3 years Jodna records victory as police grant group permit to hold protests. Taxi driver Ismail Sise arrested for his alleged involvement in kidnapping, violent extortion and rape of women. That's all for this edition of the news. Please enjoy the rest of our programs and join us tomorrow for more news. Once again, I'm Ajakari Sani. Thank you.